Hey legends, welcome along to Hellmouth Hotline. I'm your host, Rodney Stewart, and Buffy the Vampire Slayer. One more time, this is episode 16 from season 3 called Dopplegangland. And this here is an intelligently written little episode, and centres around Willow in this one, and gives her a bit more range in her character. She's playing dual roles in this episode. Yes, she is getting beaten down by everybody in this episode, starting off with Principal Snyder, and he kind of forces her into tutoring the basketball star Percy, while she's complaining about to Buffy about the treatment she's getting from Snyder. It's just like he's assuming a lot, that just at any request I just jump and do anything. And just at then Giles pops out of his office and says, "Well, get on the computer and see if you can crack the mayor's files online." And she jumps at the chance, but Faith is there briefly at the beginning of the episode, and as we've seen at the end of the last one, she's now working for the mayor, and he's putting her up in this flash apartment and whatnot, and paying her bills. And he's like, "Well, keep your old place in case your friends need to see you." And all this here obviously is going to be hidden from Buffy and the rest of the Scooby gang. So he has her well bribed. You know, he's got his own personal Slayer as part of his army now, and he's like, "I believe someone has even got a PlayStation." So she lets him know what the score is. Buffy and the rest of the gang are trying to get through his files and whatnot. But yes, so that's pretty much all we see of her in this episode. Back at the school, this basketball player, Percy, makes it clear that his idea of tutoring is that Willow should just do the homework for him, and he'd put his name on it at the end. But he's like, "Don't be doing it too, intelligently, because they'll know it's not me," more or less. Frustrated and unhappy about the whole situation, Willow then kind of starts a fight with, well, not really start a fight, she just gets really upset with Buffy and Xander as they turn up in a similar sort of mindset. It's like old faithful Willow here can help Xander with something that he missed in class previously. So Willow kind of storms off, and we get into the meat of the episode whenever she comes across Anya. As we recall from earlier in the series, that Anya was one of these demons that took revenge and wronged women, and she granted a wish for Cordelia, that Cordelia had wished that Buffy never came to Sunnydale, and that created an alternate universe, more or less, where Sunnydale isn't the place where it's like a 50-50 mix of humans and vampires. It's nearly 100% vampires, and the humans, what remain, are pretty much cattle for the vampires. So Anya gets hold of Willow, knowing that she's into witchcraft and skimming the surface of the black arts, and gets her to do a spell so that Anya can get hold of her centre of power, the amulet that she wore around her neck, which was destroyed in that previous episode. Put everything back together, rendered her human, and yes, she puts forward the idea that the necklace was a family heirloom and it's been lost, and Willow been she wants to try and be a little bit bad at this point, because everybody thinks she's so flippin' good. She jumps at the chance to do a bit of magic here, but she doesn't know exactly who Anya is, and how devastating this could be if she gets the amulet back. But while they're trying to conjure the spell, it goes wrong, and in that previous episode, in that alternate universe timeline, Willow and Xander were both vampires. And as it's going wrong, instead of bringing the necklace back, Willow accidentally summons the vampire Willow from the episode Wish, and she lands in Sunnydale, and yes, she's not happy about being there, let's just say. She sees it a lot different from her own time and her own universe. No one's afraid of her. There are more humans than vampires. The city is peaceful, corruption free, more or less. So she goes to the Bronze, where she fights with this guy Percy. Percy turns up and he's like, thinks it's the real Willow, or it's this vampire Willow, and she throws him across the pool table. She then runs into her old lover Xander, and that other realm, other universe. They were both vampires, and lovers, realises that he's still alive. And she also sees Buffy, who is alive, and despises her a lot. Willow's like, I don't like you. And Buffy and Xander's like, I know you wanted to be a bit bad and you're upset with us, but we don't like this new you. At this point, Vampire Willow shows her true face as the vampire. So, the both of them are they're devastated. In their eyes, their best friend has been killed, and they're blaming themselves that, if they hadn't been so rough on her, she wouldn't have went out and tried to be bad and get herself killed. So they're at the library, they follow Giles in and the whole thing, and he's devastated, and they're sitting there blaming themselves when actual real Willow walks through the door, and there's a little bit of comedy in there whenever they start to realise this isn't her, she's not dead. So it's time to work out what's going on. The vampire Willow is attacked by a few vampires. They're sent by the mayor, and but she turns them to her side. It's like, who are you working for? She breaks one of his fingers. We're working for the mayor. She breaks another finger. Who are you working for? Oh, we're working for you, more or less. So she's going to take Sunnydale and turn it into the Sunnydale that she remembers from her own universe. Buffy and Xander, they're telling Giles, blah, 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 I'm out of order, and my notes here. Willow arrives, and none of them are aware that Vampire Willow's true origin is what's happened. Angel and Anya drop into the Bronze. Vampire Willow and her new minions arrive to capture the crowd. Angel escapes to find Buffy, and Anya recognises what has happened and offers to restore Vampire Willow back to her own world in return for help in retrieving the amulet. And she suggests capturing the other Willow to assist in the spell. And there's the effects for the time aren't as crisp as what they would be today. Whenever you have the same actor playing two characters on screen at the one time, it's very obvious that obviously it's a visual effect, but it's brutally obvious compared to the normal style of the episode. And whenever the two characters are together on screen at one time, you can see that sort of haze where it's been a couple of layers put over the top of each other. It was always a rough one to get right. Movies, for the most part back then, got it done incredibly well, but that was huger budgets. But this was a TV show, and when they try something to get there, you can see the effect and when it's coming. And even in the transformation from a human face to a vampire face, that effect there, you'll see like a haze across the screen. So it's not perfect, but it is what it is. It's done very well in this episode, but you can see the change in the style when it's happening. So there's a whole mix up with the Vampire Willow and the real Willow. The real Willow manages to shoot the vampire Willow with a tranquilizer dart. That's, the tranquilizer gun is there for Oz if he gets out of control. So Scoobies are wondering what's happening, and Angel turns up to offer the devastating news that Willow is now dead and a vampire. But while he's giving Buffy and the rest of the gang the news, real Willow was standing off in the corner, and he turns and he looks and goes, "Hey, Willow." And then he's like, "What the hell's going on here?" So I were right there with you, mate, sort of deal. But they work out an idea. Angel falls them in on the whole situation of the bronze, it's full of vampires. They're getting ready to take out everybody. So they do a switcheroo between the real Willow and the vampire Willow, and real Willow was in there dressed up in the leathers and tries to, even the odds a little bit by trying to pretend to be a vampire. But of course, this is the real Willow we're talking about. She's not a badass by any stretch of the imagination. So she manages to send the odd vampire out here and there. Buffy, Angel are outside, and as each vampire comes out, they slay them. And yes, back in the bronze, Anya realises what's happened. This is the real Willow, and things go from bad to worse very quickly. Back at the library, the vampire Willow wakes up. She's now contained inside the vault, the cage in the library on her own. She's dressed in Willow's clothes at this point, and as she wakes up, Cordelia arrives, and evil Willow tries to get Cordelia to let her out of the cage. But Cordelia sees her chance for a little bit of revenge here for what Willow did, the real Willow did with Xander, stealing Xander off Cordelia. And she takes this opportunity to sit down, make a cup of coffee, and just have a therapy session to try and guilt Willow for being such a bad person, not realising the whole time that this is the vampire Willow. But eventually she lets her out, and vampire Willow tries to kill her, of course. She is saved by Wesley, and there's a bit of comedy there with him, because he's meant to be this watcher, and he's doesn't have the bravery that Giles has. And when he does eventually drive off, the evil Willow, using a cross and a little vial of holy water, Cordelia taps him on the shoulder after the evil Willow leaves, and he screams like a little girl. So there's a bit of comedy there, and Cordelia takes her chance, like, you've saved my life, what are you doing later tonight? She's got a bit of a fancy of him, let's just say. Back at the bronze, the fight has now commenced. Willow has screamed that was going to be her. If she was going to get in trouble, we'll give you a sign, and the sign would be, if you hear me screaming, come in and help me. So all hell breaks loose with the final fight of the episode, and Buffy and Angel are in there along with Xander and Giles. Are taking out vampires, and the evil Willow turns up and attacks the real Willow on the stage at the bronze. So Buffy is just about to stake the evil Willow when the real Willow screams for her to stop. And as much as they all realise that this is an evil alternate universe version of Willow, 100% evil vampire, they can't bring themselves to kill her, saying as it's, even though it's not Willow, it's a version of Willow. Willow can't bring herself to kill her, and Buffy's like, I can't either. So they get hold of Anya to reenact the spell along with the guidance of Willow and Giles to send the evil vampire version of Willow back to her own universe, and all will be right with the world again. And they, of course, the spell goes well, and the evil vampire Willow is sent back to the point where she left her own universe, which, if you were watching very closely at the beginning of the episode, whenever all this is taking place, you'll realise that she was just about to get staked by Oz in her own universe. And of course, there's a nice little moment with the two Willows whenever they're starting to realise, this world's no fun anymore. I want to go home, more or less, as evil as the vampire version is. And Angel kind of lets it out a little bit in the episode. Buffy is like, when they're talking about the evil version of Willow, she's trying to reassure the real Willow by telling her, you can't make up an opinion on this version of yourself because it's a vampire. It doesn't have anything to do with the actual person. That's a demon inside the body of the person that was the soul that occupied it beforehand. And Angel is like, well, you know what? Actually, so he almost lets slip at this point that there is, even though it's a demon in control of the body, it does have a lot of the personality traits of the person that it replaced, which is a bit of a new concept at this point in the series. But yes, so again, when the first spell went wrong and the evil Willow was brought from her own universe, she was about to get staked by that universe's version of Oz. And of course, whenever she's returned back to her own universe, that's at the same point she left. So when she arrives, she smiles, she's all happy to be home, just to get pushed into this broken wooden stake-like thing hanging out the wall, and is dusted there and then. Back in the Prime universe, Willow and Buffy are having a little chit-chat outside school, and after the kicking that Percy got off the evil Willow, not realising anything that's happened in this episode, of course, he turns up a completely changed man, and he's like, I've done my own homework, and I wasn't sure which president I was supposed to do, so I've done the both of them, and you can check it out, and if any changes are needing made, you can tell me and I'll do it for you. And as he goes to walk away, he comes back and he gives Willow an apple. So at the end of the episode, Willow's got a wee bit of a more badass appearance to some people after the events of what happened with her doppelganger in the episode. Great little episode. It's a bit of a break away from the main storyline of the series, but that's never a bad thing, depending on the storyline that you're following. Generally throughout these shows, there's an overarching storyline from the beginning of the season to the end of the season, but we break off and have kind of like a little standalone sort of a story every once in a while. That's what we get here, and very enjoyable. Normally, if it's a great storyline that's run throughout the entire season, I'm not a big fan of a lot of the episodes that kind of break away from it for a bit, but this one here was very good. And when it was released, let me see what sort of reception it got. I'm just looking it up online here. It was originally broadcast February 23rd, 1999. It received a Nielsen rating of 4.1. It was the second most watched program of the week on the WB television network. Noel Murray from the AV Club commented the episode as terrific on a myriad levels, from the dialogue to the plot twists of the multiple spot-on character moments. But mostly it's a top-drawer episode for the way it binds the Buffyverse together by demonstrating how adept the writing staff is at remembering everything they've done on the show before and reusing the elements that still have plenty of juice in them. Yeah, that episode gave a little bit more life to that universe that we've previously seen, and it gave the character of Willow a bit of extra depth in it. Like, as I said in previous reviews here, and I think this is the reason they actually did this episode, was because the Willow character, for me, and I believe it was the last episode review I did in the show here, she annoyed the living piss out of me in that episode to the point where I wanted to reach for the TV screen, drag her out under reality, give her a little shake and set her back in there. It's like, settle your head, you big idiot. It's, grow up, you child. So, it was nice to see that little bit of a change in the character in this episode, but she probably goes back to exactly the way she was after this. But yes, very, very good, very enjoyable episode, and yes, I'm really enjoying this season, and I can't wait to keep going with them and keep this series going on the regular. Slipped off for far too long there, for a long, long time. Anyway, guys, I hope you're all doing well. I hope you enjoyed this episode. Do all that good social media stuff. Hit that email if you want to, hellmouthhotline@gmail.com. Share the show along, hit that follow button, all that good stuff. And until the next one, stay safe, and I'll talk to you all then. This has been a production of Coins Age Media. Thank you so much for